Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. The fluorescent lights of Carver's Corner Market hummed their familiar electric song as Nathan Carver reviewed the day's receipts in his cramped office above the store. 6 months of running this place had taught him every sound. The creak of the dairy cooler, the electronic beep of the register, the soft shuffle of Mrs. Thompson's slippers as she made her nightly pilgrimage for ice cream. But tonight, something felt different. Nathan rubbed his temple, where the scar from the accident still ached during storms. The doctors explained that his traumatic brain injury had affected his hippocampus, the area responsible for forming and retrieving personal memories. He could remember facts, skills, and general knowledge. But the last 2 years of his personal life remained frustratingly blank. Some days, he felt like an intruder in his own existence, living in a house that echoed with emptiness he couldn't explain. The security monitor flickered, drawing his attention to the grainy black and white feed from camera 3. A young woman moved through the baby formula aisle, with the careful precision of someone who had mapped every blind spot in the store. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest tighten. High cheekbones, full lips pressed thin with concentration, and skin the color of warm honey that seemed to glow even under the harsh store lighting. But it was her eyes that stopped his breath. Even through the pixelated security footage, he could see the desperation there, the kind of quiet panic that came from watching your world crumble one piece at a time. She glanced toward the front counter, where Ethan was helping another customer, then quickly slipped a can of premium baby formula into her worn winter jacket. Nathan should have felt anger, should have immediately called down to Ethan or picked up the phone to alert security. Instead, he found himself leaning closer to the monitor. Studying the graceful curve of her neck as she bent to examine another product, the way her fingers trembled as she touched the price tag of organic baby food she clearly couldn't afford. There was something achingly familiar about her movements, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, how she carefully avoided the squeaky spot near the bread display, like watching a ghost from a dream he couldn't quite grasp. The woman girl, really, she couldn't be more than 22 or 23, made her way toward the front of the store. Nathan watched her pause at the magazine rack, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach, in a gesture so tender and protective it made his heart constrict. That's when he noticed the slight roundness there, the way her coat didn't quite close over what looked like recent motherhood. "Sir," Ethan's voice crackled through the intercom. "We have a situation down here." Nathan watched the monitor as Ethan approached the young woman near the exit. Even from his vantage point, he could see her spine straighten, her chin lift with a pride that somehow made her more beautiful. She knew she'd been caught. "Sir, we caught a shoplifter," Ethan called again, his voice carrying that familiar mix of authority and barely concealed satisfaction that made Nathan's stomach turn. Should I call the police? Nathan found himself moving toward the stairs before he'd made a conscious decision. Each step down felt heavy, weighted with an emotion he couldn't name. Through the office window, he could see the confrontation unfolding, Ethan standing too close, his bulk intimidating, while the young woman stood perfectly still, her hands visible, her dignity intact despite the circumstances. "Empty your pockets," Ethan was saying as Nathan reached the main floor. "And your bag, everything." "I don't have a bag," she said quietly, her voice carrying a musical quality that sent an unexpected shiver down Nathan's spine. There was something about her tone, the careful pronunciation, the slight rasp that suggested exhaustion. "The jacket, then. Take it off." Nathan watched her hands shake as she began to unzip the worn winter coat. It was then that he noticed the milk stains on her dark sweater, the way her clothes hung slightly loose, as if she'd lost weight recently. This wasn't a career criminal or someone stealing for the thrill. This was a mother at the end of her rope. As the can of formula tumbled from her jacket to the linoleum floor with a hollow metallic sound, the young woman's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. Her shoulders sagged, and Nathan saw a single tear track down her cheek before she quickly wiped it away. "Please," she whispered, and the word carried such weight that Nathan felt it settle in his chest like a stone. "My baby, she's hungry. I have money coming in tomorrow. I swear I can pay you back. She hasn't eaten since yesterday morning, and the formula I had was recalled." "And save it," Ethan interrupted. "I've heard every sob story in the book. You people always have some excuse." The casual cruelty in Ethan's voice, The dismissive way he said "you people" made Nathan's vision blur with anger. But it was more than that. There was something protective rising in him, something primal and fierce that he didn't understand. "Sir," Ethan looked toward Nathan expectantly, "should I call it in? We've been having too many problems with theft lately. Need to send a message." Nathan found himself studying the young woman's face, as if trying to solve a puzzle. Her dark eyes met his across the narrow aisle, and for a moment, the world seemed to stop. There was recognition there, or something like it, a flicker of confusion, of hope, of something deeper that made his pulse quicken. She was beautiful, yes, but it was more than that. Looking at her felt like coming home after a long journey, like finding something precious he hadn't realized he'd lost. The feeling was so strong, so overwhelming, that it took his breath away. "What's your name?" he heard himself ask, his voice rougher than he intended. She blinked, surprise replacing the resignation in her expression. "Serena," she said softly. "Serena Walsh." The name hit him like a physical blow, not because he recognized it. The doctors had warned him that some memories might never return, but because saying it felt right somehow, like a word he'd been searching for without knowing it. "Serena," he repeated, and watched her eyes widen at the way he said it, as if the syllables held weight they both couldn't understand. Ethan shifted impatiently. "Sir, what do you want me to do? The police, or—" "How old is your baby?" Nathan asked, ignoring Ethan entirely. His feet carried him closer to her, drawn by an invisible force he couldn't explain. "3 months," Serena whispered, her hand moving instinctively to her chest, where Nathan could now see the slight dampness of milk let down on her sweater. 3 months and 2 weeks. Something twisted in Nathan's chest. 3 months. The accident had been 6 months ago. The timing felt significant, though he couldn't say why. "A daughter?" he asked, and when she nodded, he felt that strange recognition pulse through him again. "What's her name?" "Violet." The word came out like a prayer, full of love and desperation. "Her name is Violet." Even Ethan seemed to fade into the background as Nathan processed the name. It meant something to him, something important that hovered just at the edge of his consciousness, like a half-remembered dream. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" he found himself saying, though he'd never seen the child. Serena's composure broke completely then. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she nodded. "She's perfect. She's everything. And I can't even feed her properly. What kind of mother can't feed her own baby?" The raw pain in her voice nearly brought Nathan to his knees. Without thinking, he stepped forward and gently touched her arm. The contact sent electricity shooting through him, a jolt of connection so intense it made him gasp. Serena felt it too. He could see it in the way her breath caught, in the way her eyes searched his face, as if she was seeing a ghost. "Sir," Ethan's voice seemed to come from very far away. "What do you want me to do about this?" Nathan looked at the can of formula on the floor, then at Serena's tear-stained face, then at Ethan's expectant expression. Something was building in his chest, something protective and fierce, and completely irrational. The words came from somewhere deep inside him, from a place beyond conscious thought. Later, he would wonder if some part of his damaged brain had recognized her, not with memory, but with something more primal, the instinct to protect, to claim, to defend what belonged to him, even when he couldn't understand why. "Leave her," he said, his voice carrying an authority that surprised even him. "She's my wife." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan's mouth fell open. Serena stared at Nathan as if he'd lost his mind. Maybe he had. He certainly felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. But even as confusion swirled around him, even as he wondered what the hell had possessed him to say such a thing, Nathan knew with absolute certainty that he couldn't let Serena Walsh walk out of his store and disappear into the night. Whatever was happening between them, whatever strange pull he felt toward this desperate young mother, it was just the beginning. Chapter 2. The Revelation. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap that refused to fade. Nathan stared at Serena, his heart hammering against his ribs as he tried to understand what had possessed him to claim this stranger as his wife. But even as panic clawed at his throat, something deeper, something primal, whispered that it wasn't a Linode entirely. Serena's face had gone pale, her dark eyes wide with shock, and something that looked almost like terror. What did you say? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan looked between them like he was watching a tennis match played in a foreign language. Boss, what are you talking about? You don't have a wife. You told me you lived alone. Nathan felt sweat break out across his forehead. What was he supposed to say? That he'd just claimed a shoplifter as his spouse because looking at her made his chest feel like it was splitting open? That the name Violet had sent shockwaves through his damaged brain? That every instinct he possessed was screaming at him to protect this woman he'd never seen before in his life? He started, then stopped, his eyes locked on Serena's face. She was studying him with an intensity that made him feel exposed, as if she could see straight through to his soul. Nathan, she said softly, and the way she said his name like a question, like a prayer, like she was afraid he might disappear if she spoke too loudly made his knees weak. You know my name, he said, and it wasn't a question. Tears were streaming down her face now, and she was shaking her head slowly, as if trying to wake herself from a dream. This isn't possible. You're dead. They told me you were dead. The words hit him like a physical blow. Dead? Who told you I was dead? But Serena was backing away from him, her hands pressed to her mouth, her breathing rapid and shallow. No, this isn't real. You died in the accident. I went to the hospital. They said there were no survivors. Ethan was looking more confused by the second. Boss, maybe we should call someone. She seems pretty shaken up. Don't call anyone, Nathan said sharply, his eyes never leaving Serena's face. Serena, please, talk to me. What accident? She was hyperventilating now, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Nathan moved toward her slowly, the way he might approach a wounded animal. Hey, breathe, just breathe. I'm here. I'm real. The car accident, she gasped. 6 months ago. The bridge. They said you didn't make it. That you were thrown from the car. That your body. She couldn't finish the sentence. 6 months ago. Nathan's hand went instinctively to the scar on his temple. His accident. But he'd been alone in the car, hadn't he? The doctor said he'd been alone. I survived, he said quietly. I was in a coma for 3 weeks, but I survived. Serena was staring at him like she was seeing a ghost, and maybe she was. You don't remember me, do you? She whispered. The question pierced through him because it was true and yet not true. He didn't remember her, but he felt her. Every cell in his body was responding to her presence, like she was the missing piece of a puzzle he'd been trying to solve for months. I have amnesia, he admitted. From the accident, there are gaps, large gaps. Oh my God, she breathed. They lied to me. Your family. They lied to me. My family? Nathan frowned. What did they say? But Serena wasn't listening anymore. She was looking around the store, as if seeing it for the first time, taking in the familiar layout, the way Nathan moved through the space like he owned it. You kept the store, she said wonderingly. You always said you wanted to keep your grandfather's store. A chill ran down Nathan's spine. His grandfather had owned this place. But Nathan had never told anyone about that. It wasn't exactly public knowledge that he'd inherited Carver's Corner Market from his mother's father, a man his upper-class family had preferred to forget. How do you know about my grandfather? Serena's laugh was broken, hysterical. Because you told me. Because we used to come here together when it was still his. Because you brought me here the night you proposed and said you wanted to run it together someday. The world tilted sideways. Nathan gripped the edge of the counter to steady himself. Proposed? Boss, Ethan interrupted, his voice uncertain. Maybe you should sit down. You're looking pretty pale. But Nathan couldn't sit down. He couldn't breathe. He was staring at Serena's left hand, where a thin band of lighter skin around her ring finger told a story he was only beginning to understand. We're married, he said. And it wasn't a question anymore. Serena nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. We were married 10 months ago. A small ceremony at the courthouse, because your family. She trailed off, pain flickering across her face. Because my family, what? Because they hated me, she finished quietly. Because I wasn't good enough for their son. Because I was just a nursing student from the wrong side of town who got pregnant and trapped their precious heir. The pieces were clicking into place with sickening clarity. The house that felt too empty, the women's clothes in the closet that he couldn't bring himself to throw away, even though he couldn't remember who they belonged to, the nursery upstairs that he'd assumed was meant for a niece or nephew. "Violet," he breathed. "Your daughter?" "Our daughter," Serena confirmed. The word "our" nearly brought him to his knees. Our daughter. He had a child, a baby girl named Violet, who was 3 months old and hungry because her mother was so desperate she'd resorted to shoplifting. "Where is she?" he asked urgently. "Where's Violet?" "With my neighbor, Mrs. Lopez. She watches her when I—" Serena gestured helplessly at the store around them. "When I can't afford a babysitter and have to do things like this." The shame in her voice was unbearable. Nathan reached for her without thinking, pulling her into his arms before he could question the impulse. She felt perfect there, like she'd been designed to fit against him. Her scent baby powder and vanilla, and something uniquely her hit him, like a memory he couldn't quite grasp. "You don't have to steal," he said fiercely. "You don't have to do any of this anymore. I'm here. I'm alive." Serena pulled back to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "But you don't remember me. You don't remember us." "No," he admitted. "But I feel you. Standing here with you, it's like I've been holding my breath for 6 months and can finally breathe again." Ethan cleared his throat awkwardly. "So, should I put the formula back on the shelf or—" Nathan looked down at the can that had started all of this, then back at Serena. "No. Ring it up. And get a case of it. Get whatever she needs." "Nathan, I can't let you. You're not letting me do anything," he interrupted. "I'm taking care of my family. That's what husbands do, isn't it?" The word husband felt foreign on his tongue, but also right in a way that defied explanation. Serena was studying him with wonder and weariness in equal measure. "I don't understand how this is possible," she said softly. "I mourned you. I buried an empty casket. I've been living like a widow for 6 months." The pain in her voice cut through him like a blade. "I'm sorry, God, Serena. I'm so sorry. I wish I could remember. I wish I could remember you, remember us." She reached up and touched the scar on his temple with gentle fingers. "The doctor said the damage was too severe, that even if you had survived, you might never be the same." "Maybe I'm not the same," he said, catching her hand and pressing it to his cheek. "But maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe we can start over." "Start over," she repeated. "Fall in love again? Build a life together? Be a family?" For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Then reality crashed back in, and she pulled her hand away. "It's not that simple, Nathan. Your family made sure I understood that our marriage was a mistake. They have lawyers, money, power. They said if I ever tried to contact you again, they'd take Violet away from me." Rage, pure and cold, flooded through Nathan's veins. "They what?" "They said I seduced you for your money, that I got pregnant on purpose to trap you, that a girl like me would never be able to give you the life you deserved." Nathan felt something crack open in his chest, something that might have been the first real memory he'd recovered since the accident. Not a visual memory, but an emotional one. The fierce protectiveness he'd felt for this woman, the way he'd chosen her over his family's expectations, the certainty that she was his future. "They're wrong," he said quietly. "About everything. You're not a mistake, Serena. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I may not remember falling in love with you, but I can feel it happening all over again." She was crying openly now, her hands pressed to her face. "I wanted to believe you were alive so badly. I used to dream that you'd come back to us. But I can't do this again, Nathan. I can't hope and have it ripped away." Nathan wanted to promise her that wouldn't happen, wanted to swear that he'd never leave her again. But the truth was, he didn't know what came next. He didn't know how to be a husband to a woman he couldn't remember, or a father to a child he'd never met. What he did know was that letting Serena walk out of his store again was impossible. "Come home with me," he said simply. "Both of you. Come home." Chapter 3. Fragments of Memory. The drive to Mrs. Lopez's apartment felt like the longest 15 minutes of Nathan's life. Serena sat rigid in the passenger seat of his BMW, staring out the window at the familiar streets of their neighborhood, though, of course, he didn't remember they were familiar to him. This part of town was foreign territory, a world away from the upscale district where he apparently lived. "Turn left here," Serena said quietly, her voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. Nathan followed her directions, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. His mind was reeling with fragments of information that felt like pieces of someone else's life. A wife he couldn't remember, a daughter he'd never met, a family that had lied to keep them apart. The apartment complex Serena directed him to was modest but well-maintained. The kind of place where working families scraped together rent each month, but took pride in their small corner of the world. Nathan parked under a flickering streetlight and killed the engine, suddenly terrified of what came next. "She might cry when she sees you," Serena said, breaking the silence. "She's not used to strangers. And you." She trailed off, pain flashing across her face. "I'm a stranger to my own daughter," Nathan finished for her. "Not by choice," Serena said quickly. None of this was by choice. They climbed the stairs to the second floor in silence. Nathan's heart was pounding so hard he was sure Serena could hear it. When she knocked on apartment 2B, the door opened almost immediately to reveal a plump, middle-aged Latina woman with kind eyes and worry lines etched deep around her mouth. "Mija, Mrs. Lopez said, taking in Serena's tear-stained face. "What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I have," Serena said softly, glancing back at Nathan. "Mrs. Lopez, this is Nathan. Violet's father." "Mrs." Lopez's eyes widened, and she crossed herself quickly. "Dios mío, but you said he was dead." "I thought he was dead." Serena's voice cracked. "We all did." "Mrs." Lopez studied Nathan with the sharp eyes of a woman who'd raised 5 children and could spot trouble from a mile away. Whatever she saw in his face must have satisfied her, because she stepped back and gestured them inside. "She just fell asleep," she whispered, leading them toward a makeshift nursery in the corner of her living room. "She was fussy earlier, hungry, you know, but I managed to get her down about an hour ago." Nathan followed Serena across the small apartment, his breath catching as they approached a porta-crib where a tiny figure lay sleeping. Even in the dim light from the hallway, he could see dark hair curling against a small head, impossibly long eyelashes resting against chubby cheeks. "Oh," he breathed, the sound escaping him involuntarily. Violet was perfect, absolutely heartbreakingly perfect. She was small, probably smaller than she should be at 3 months, he realized with a pang of guilt. But there was something about her that made his chest tight with emotions he couldn't name. "She has your chin," Serena whispered, moving closer to the crib, "and your hands. Look at her fingers. They're so long, just like yours." Nathan stared at his daughter's tiny hands, curled into loose fists as she slept. He wanted to touch her, to make sure she was real. But he was afraid he might wake her. Afraid she might cry when she saw him, too afraid that he'd somehow prove himself unworthy of this precious gift he couldn't remember receiving. "Can I?" he started, then stopped. "Pick her up," Serena encouraged softly. "She needs to know you." With trembling hands, Nathan reached into the crib and carefully lifted his daughter. She was lighter than he'd expected, warm and soft and utterly trusting as she settled against his chest without waking. The moment she was in his arms, something shifted inside him, a fierce protectiveness that was purely instinctual, biological. "Hello, baby girl," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I'm your daddy." As if responding to his voice, Violet's eyes fluttered open. For a heart-stopping moment, father and daughter stared at each other in perfect silence. Her eyes were dark, like her mother's, but there was something in their shape that reminded Nathan of his own reflection. Then Violet smiled, a real smile, not just gas, and Nathan felt his entire world reorganize itself around this tiny person in his arms. "She likes you, Mrs." Lopez observed with satisfaction. "Babies know these things. They know blood." Nathan couldn't speak. He was too overwhelmed by the rush of love and protectiveness and bone-deep recognition that flooded through him. This was his child, his daughter, the most important thing he'd ever done, even if he couldn't remember doing it. "We should go," Serena said quietly. "Let you get some rest, Mrs. Lopez. Thank you for watching her. Anytime, mija. You know that." The older woman pressed a diaper bag into Serena's hands. "I packed everything she'll need for the night, and there's some formula in there too, the good kind from the clinic." During the drive back to his house, Nathan couldn't stop glancing in the rearview mirror at Violet's car seat. Serena had installed it with practiced efficiency, her movements automatic in a way that spoke of months of single motherhood. Every red light felt like a gift, another chance to look at his daughter's sleeping face. "The house is going to feel familiar to you," Serena said, as they pulled into the driveway of a beautiful colonial in an upscale neighborhood. "We lived there for 3 months before the accident." Nathan stared up at the house he'd been calling home for 6 months, seeing it with new eyes. The wraparound porch with its swing, the garden beds that someone had lovingly maintained, the wide front door painted a cheerful blue. It all looked different now that he knew Serena had chosen these details with him. Inside, the familiarity hit him like a wave-knot memory exactly, but a sense of rightness that he'd been missing without knowing it. Serena moved through the space with easy knowledge, heading straight for the kitchen to warm a bottle, while Nathan carried Violet into the living room. "You can put her in the bouncy seat," Serena called. "It's in the corner by the window." Nathan looked where she'd indicated and saw a baby seat he'd noticed before but never questioned. Like so many other things in this house, it had been hiding in plain sight, waiting for him to remember its purpose. As he settled Violet into the seat, his eyes fell on the mantelpiece above the fireplace. There were picture frames there, frames he'd thought held photos of family and friends, but which he now realized might hold memories of his lost life. He walked over for a closer look and felt his breath catch. The photos were of him and Serena, laughing together at what looked like a fair, dancing at what might have been their wedding, lying in a hospital bed with Serena holding a newborn Violet, while Nathan gazed down at them both with an expression of pure wonder. "I look happy," he said wonderingly. Serena appeared beside him with Violet's bottle, following his gaze to the photographs. "You were happy. We both were. Those first few months after Violet was born, even though we were exhausted and broke most of the time, we were so happy." Nathan studied the man in the photos himself, but not himself. This Nathan looked younger somehow, less burdened. There was joy in his eyes, contentment in the way he held his family. "What was I like?" he asked. "Before the accident, I mean. Was I different?" Serena was quiet for a long moment, adjusting Violet in her arms as she began to feed her. "You were lighter," she said finally. "You laughed more. You worried less about what people thought. Your family had always put so much pressure on you to be perfect, to live up to their expectations, but with us, you could just be yourself." "And who was that?" A soft smile crossed Serena's face. Someone who made terrible dad jokes and sang off-key lullabies. Someone who could spend hours just watching Violet sleep. Someone who loved fiercely and completely, even when it cost him everything. "It cost me my family," Nathan said, understanding flickering through him. "Your parents cut you off when you married me. They said you were throwing your life away, that I was beneath you. They threatened to disinherit you if you didn't get the marriage annulled. But I didn't. No. You said love was worth more than money, that Violet and I were your real family now." Nathan felt something crack open in his chest, not a memory, but an emotion so strong it nearly brought him to his knees. Looking at Serena feeding their daughter in the home they'd built together, he understood why the man in those photographs had looked so content. "I was an idiot to risk losing this," he said quietly. "You didn't lose it by choice," Serena reminded him. "The accident, your injuries, the amnesia known of that was your fault. But my family's lies were their choice." Anger flared in Nathan's chest. "They let you think I was dead. They let you struggle alone with a newborn while I was living in comfort, not even knowing you existed. They said it was for the best, that you'd never remember anyway, and I should move on with my life. Find someone more suitable." "Someone more suitable," Nathan repeated, his voice flat with disgust. "As if anyone could be more suitable than the mother of my child. As if anyone could be more perfect than you." Serena's eyes filled with tears. "You used to say things like that, beautiful things that made me believe I was worth loving." "You are worth loving," Nathan said fiercely. "Memory or no memory, I can see that. I can feel it." As if sensing the emotional weight of the moment, Violet finished her bottle and let out a small, contented sigh. Serena lifted her to her shoulder for burping, and Nathan watched the practiced way she moved, the gentle circle she rubbed on their daughter's back. "You're an amazing mother," he said. "I've had to be. When you're all your child has." She trailed off, her voice thick with exhaustion and barely suppressed grief. "You're not alone anymore," Nathan said, stepping closer. "I know I can't just flip a switch and become the husband and father I was before. I know I can't erase these 6 months of hell you've been through. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Serena looked up at him, hope and fear warring in her expression. "What if your memory never comes back? What if you wake up tomorrow and decide this was all a mistake?" Nathan reached out and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing away a tear. "Then we'll make new memories, better ones. I don't need to remember falling in love with you to know that I'm falling in love with you right now." For a moment, they stood frozen in that tableau. Husband and wife and baby, a family reunited by chance and held together by something stronger than memory. Then Violet let out a tiny burp, and they both laughed, the tension breaking like a soap bubble. "Come on," Nathan said softly. "Let me show you to your room. Both of you." Chapter 4. The Missing Years. Nathan woke to the sound of crying, not distressed crying, but the demanding wail of a hungry baby who expected immediate attention. For a moment, he lay disoriented in his bed, wondering why there was an infant in his house. Then memory crashed back, and he bolted upright. Violet. Serena. His family. Pale morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains as he pulled on jeans and a t-shirt, following the sound down the hall. He found Serena in the nursery, pacing the floor with Violet against her shoulder, bouncing gently and making soft, shushing sounds. "Hey," he said softly from the doorway, not wanting to startle her. Serena turned, and Nathan's breath caught. Even exhausted, even wearing one of his old college t-shirts that hung loose on her frame, she was beautiful. Her hair was mussed from sleep, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of too many nights like this one. "I'm sorry she woke you," Serena said, her voice rough with fatigue. "She's usually not this fussy, but I think being in a new place has her confused. Don't apologize. This is her home." Nathan moved closer, studying his daughter's red face. "What does she need? Bottle, probably. I fed her at 3, but growth spurts make them extra hungry." Serena swayed slightly on her feet, and Nathan realized she was running on pure adrenaline. "When did you sleep last? Really sleep?" Serena's laugh was bitter. "What's sleep? I think I remember it vaguely from before Violet was born." The casual way she said it broke Nathan's heart. How many nights had she spent alone like this, dealing with a fussy baby while grieving for a husband she thought was dead? How many times had she paced this same floor, probably in tears herself, with no one to help her? "Go back to bed," he said, reaching for Violet. "I'll handle this." "You don't know how." "Then teach me." He gently took the baby from her arms, surprised by how natural it felt to hold his daughter. "I'm her father, Serena. I should know how to feed my own child." For a moment, he thought she might argue, then her shoulders sagged with relief, and she nodded. "Formula is in the kitchen. 2 scoops in 6 ounces of water, warm but not hot. Test it on your wrist." "Got it. Go sleep." After Serena disappeared into the master bedroom, their bedroom, he realized with a start Nathan carried Violet downstairs. The kitchen was bright and cheerful in the morning light, with yellow walls and white cabinets that spoke of Serena's influence. This was nothing like the stark, modern spaces his family preferred. As he prepared the bottle, following Serena's instructions precisely, Violet fussed in her bouncy seat, but the moment he settled into the rocking chair by the kitchen window and offered her the bottle, she latched on eagerly, her tiny hands gripping his fingers. "There you go, sweetheart," he murmured, watching her dark eyes focus on his face as she drank. "Much better, right?" This was nice, he realized, this quiet morning moment with his daughter, sunlight streaming through the windows, the house peaceful around them. It felt right in a way that his solitary breakfasts never had. When Violet finished eating, Nathan carefully burped her the way he'd watched Serena do, then settled her against his chest. She was growing drowsy again, her tiny fist tangled in his shirt. "Tell me about your mama," he said softly. his voice barely above a whisper. "I wish I could remember meeting her. I bet she was beautiful even then. I bet I took one look at her and knew my life was about to change." As if responding to his voice, Violet's eyes fluttered closed. Nathan continued rocking gently, not wanting to disturb this perfect moment. It was then that he noticed the photo album on the side table, leather-bound and obviously well-loved. Careful not to wake Violet, he managed to pull the album into his lap and flip it open. The first page made his chest tighten with emotion. There he was, maybe 2 years younger, standing outside what looked like a college campus with his arm around a laughing Serena. She was wearing scrubs and looked tired but radiant, her face glowing with happiness. Nathan studied his own expression in the photo. He looked smitten, completely besotted with the woman beside him. He turned the page and found more photos that told the story of their relationship. Serena studying at their kitchen table while Nathan cooked dinner behind her, the two of them at what looked like a hospital charity event, dressed formally but clearly more interested in each other than the festivities around them. A series of silly selfies that captured quiet moments, movie nights, lazy Sunday mornings, stolen kisses in parking lots. Each photo felt like a key to a locked door in his mind, not quite opening memories, but stirring something deeper, emotions, impressions, the echo of feelings too strong to be completely erased. Then he reached the wedding photos, and his breath caught. It had been a small ceremony, clearly, just Serena, in a simple white dress that made her look ethereal, and Nathan in a dark suit, standing before what looked like a justice of the peace. But the joy on their faces was radiant, unmistakable. They looked like two people who'd found their entire world in each other. "We look happy," he murmured to sleeping Violet. "Really, really happy." The pregnancy photos came next, Serena's growing belly captured in loving detail, Nathan's hands always somewhere in the frame, protective and wonder-filled. There was one of him kneeling beside a bathtub where Serena sat, his cheek pressed to a rounded stomach, his eyes closed in what looked like pure bliss. Finally, the hospital photos. Serena, exhausted but glowing, holding a newborn Violet, while Nathan sat beside them on the bed, his expression one of absolute awe. In one photo, he was holding Violet for what must have been the first time, tears streaming down his face as he stared at his daughter. "I loved you from the moment you were born," he whispered to Violet. "I may not remember it, but I can see it. I loved you both so much." "You cried for an hour," came a soft voice from the doorway. Nathan looked up to find Serena watching him, wearing a robe that had definitely been his at some point, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked marginally more rested. "When she was born," Serena continued, moving to sit on the arm of his chair, "you kept saying you couldn't believe she was real, that we'd made something so perfect together." "What was I like during the pregnancy?" Nathan asked. Serena's smile was soft with memory, protective to the point of ridiculousness. "You read every parenting book ever written. Twice. You baby-proofed the house when I was only 4 months pregnant. You talked to my belly every night, telling her about your day, your dreams for her future." Nathan felt a pang of loss so sharp it was physical. "I wish I could remember that. You used to tell her you'd never let anything hurt her, that you'd always be there to protect her and take care of her." Serena's voice grew thick. "The night before the accident, you spent 2 hours just watching her sleep, telling me how lucky we were. And then I left you. You didn't leave. You were taken from us." Nathan turned the page of the album and found the last photos. Violet at maybe 2 months old, chubby and alert, with both her parents beaming at the camera. They looked like any young family, tired but content, building a life together one day at a time. "Your family really cut you off completely?" he asked. Serena nodded grimly. "Your father called you selfish and immature." Your mother cried. "Begged you to reconsider. They threatened everything. Your trust fund, your place in the company, your future. And I chose you anyway. You said love was the only inheritance that mattered, that money couldn't buy what we had." She reached out and touched Violet's tiny hand. "You opened the store with your grandfather's inheritance," Serena explained. "The money he left you in a separate trust that your parents couldn't touch. You said it was the only honest money you'd ever had, and you wanted to honor his memory." Nathan felt a surge of pride for the man he'd been, even if he couldn't remember being him. That explains how I could afford to defy them. Your grandfather left you enough to buy the store and this house outright. No mortgage, no debt to your family. You said it meant we could build something that was truly ours. Your family didn't see it that way. When the accident happened, they swooped in immediately. They said you were brain dead, that there was no hope. They convinced the doctors to let them make decisions about your care. But I wasn't brain dead. No, but they didn't tell me that. They said you died at the scene, that there was nothing left to save. They arranged for a memorial service and had an empty casket buried while you were fighting for your life in a private facility 2 states away. The betrayal was breathtaking in its calculated cruelty. How is that even legal? Money makes a lot of things legal. They had papers drawn up declaring me mentally unfit to make medical decisions due to postpartum depression. They said I was too unstable to be trusted with information about your condition. Nathan felt rage building in his chest, white-hot and consuming. They stole 6 months of our lives. They thought they were saving you from a mistake. Your mother actually told me at the funeral that this was God's way of giving you a second chance, of freeing you from obligations. You were too young to understand. Obligations. The word tasted bitter. Is that what they thought you were? I was the girl who got pregnant and trapped their son. In their minds, everything that happened to our marriage, our love, our family, was just a trap you fell into. Nathan shifted Violet to one arm and reached for Serena's hand with the other. They were wrong about everything. How can you be so sure? You don't remember. I don't need to remember to know that what we have is real. Look at these photos, Serena. Look at our faces. That's not obligation or entrapment. That's love. Pure, honest love. Serena's eyes filled with tears. I missed you so much. Even when I was angry at you for leaving me alone, I missed you every single day. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. It wasn't your fault, but it was my family's fault, and they're going to answer for it. Serena pulled her hand away, alarm flickering across her face. Nathan, no. If you confront them, if they know you remember, I don't care what they know. They stole our daughter's first months with her father. They let you struggle and starve while I lived in comfort. They committed fraud, probably several felonies. And they're going to pay for it. They have lawyers, power, money. They could take Violet away from me, claim I'm an unfit mother because I was shoplifting. Over my dead body, Nathan's voice was steel. I won't let anyone take our family apart again. Not them, not anyone. Looking down at Violet's sleeping face, then at Serena's worried expression, Nathan felt something crystallize inside him. He might not remember the man he'd been before, but he knew exactly who he was now. A husband and father who would move heaven and earth to protect what was his. The old Nathan had chosen love over money once. This Nathan would choose it again, no matter what it cost. Chapter 5. Coming Home. 5 days into their reunion, Nathan found himself rediscovering his own life through Serena's eyes. Every room in the house held secrets she helped unlock. The way she automatically knew which cabinet held the coffee, how she hummed while doing dishes because it soothed Violet, the way she'd arranged the living room furniture to create the perfect nursing spot. But it was the small, intimate details that struck him most powerfully. You hung that picture, Serena said on Tuesday morning, nodding toward a framed photograph of a sunrise over the ocean as she fed Violet her morning bottle. You said it reminded you of hope. Nathan studied the image, something he'd walked past hundreds of times without really seeing. Where did we take it? Our honeymoon. 3 days at a bed and breakfast on the coast, because it was all we could afford. Her smile was soft with memory. You woke me up at 5 a.m. to watch the sunrise from the beach. I was so grumpy, but then you started talking about new beginnings and how every sunrise was like a promise that today could be better than yesterday. He felt that familiar ache in his chest, the hollow space where memories should be. I sound like I was quite the romantic. You were. You used to leave me little notes in my textbooks, on the bathroom mirror, tucked into my lunch. Nothing elaborate, just reminders that you loved me. As if summoned by her words, Nathan noticed a small piece of paper tucked behind the sunrise photo. He pulled it out carefully, unfolding what was clearly a note in his own handwriting. Beautiful wife, I love watching you sleep. You look like an angel dreaming of better worlds. Can't wait to build one with you. N. Oh, Serena breathed, recognizing it. I thought I'd found all of those. How many were there? Hundreds. I have them in a shoebox upstairs. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away after I thought you were gone. Nathan felt something shift inside him, not quite a memory, but an understanding of who he'd been with her. A man who wrote love notes and watched sunrises and believed in new beginnings. A man who'd been deeply, helplessly in love. Show me, he said. After Violet was settled for her morning nap, Serena led him upstairs to what had been their bedroom. Nathan had been sleeping in the guest room since bringing them home, giving Serena space to adjust to his presence, but following her into the master bedroom felt like crossing a threshold. The room was exactly as he'd found it 6 months ago. Clothes still in the dresser drawers that he'd assumed belonged to a sister or female relative. Perfume bottles on the vanity that smelled like Serena's skin. Books on pregnancy and newborn care stacked on the nightstand. I lived here, he said wonderingly. This was our room. For 3 months. We were so happy here, Nathan. We'd lie in bed in the mornings and plan our future. Talk about what kind of parents we wanted to be, what we'd teach Violet when she was older. Serena pulled a shoebox from the closet, settling cross-legged on the bed as she opened it. Inside were dozens of small papers, sticky notes, torn notebook pages, the backs of receipts, all covered in Nathan's distinctive handwriting. Read them to me, he said, sitting beside her. Serena's voice was soft as she unfolded the notes one by one. Your smile is my favorite part of every day. Thank you for making me believe in magic. Felt the baby kick this morning while you were sleeping. She's going to be a fighter like her mama. Can't wait to meet our daughter and tell her how amazing her mother is. Each note was like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, showing him glimpses of the man he'd been. Someone who noticed small moments and treasured them. Someone who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to put his feelings on paper. Is one from the day before the accident? Serena said, her voice catching. She handed him a note written on letterhead from the store. My beautiful family. Watching you two sleep is better than any dream I ever had. I love you both more than all the stars in the sky. Forever yours, N. Nathan stared at his own handwriting, trying to summon any memory of writing those words. Nothing came, but the emotion behind them was so clear, so genuine, that it took his breath away. I really loved you, he said quietly. You did, and I loved you just as much. Past tense? Serena looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. I don't know how to love a ghost, Nathan. For 6 months, you've been a memory I carried. Now you're here, but you're different. Changed. I don't know how to bridge that gap. Nathan set the notes aside and turned to face her fully. I may not remember falling in love with you, but I can feel myself falling all over again. Every time you laugh, every time you sing to Violet, every time you unconsciously reach for me and then pull back, I fall a little deeper. It's not the same, though. What we had before was built on shared experiences, inside jokes, 1,000 little moments that made us us. This feels like starting over with a stranger who happens to look like my husband. The pain in her voice cut through him. Then help me not be a stranger. Tell me about those moments. Share the jokes. Show me who we were together. Serena was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Then she stood and walked to the dresser, pulling out what looked like a journal. I wrote to you, she said, sitting back down. After the accident, when I thought you were dead, I kept writing to you anyway. I told you about Violet's milestones, about how much I missed you, about how angry I was that you left us. She opened the journal to a random page and began to read. Violet smiled for the first time today, a real smile, not just gas. I cried because you weren't here to see it. I tried to take a picture, but she stopped smiling the moment I reached for my phone. I swear she knows you're missing. She gets this look sometimes, like she's listening for something that never comes. Nathan felt his throat tighten. I missed her first smile. You missed a lot. But you're here now. That has to count for something. Over the next hour, Serena read him excerpts from her journal. 6 months of grief and love and desperate longing poured onto paper. She told him about Violet's first laugh, her first attempts at rolling over, the way she would calm down when Serena played the songs Nathan used to sing. You had this terrible singing voice, Serena said with a watery laugh, completely tone-deaf, but you didn't care. You'd sing to my belly when I was pregnant, and then to Violet, after she was born, the same songs every night. You are my sunshine. Blackbird, and this silly made-up song about a princess who saved herself. Sing it to me, Nathan said. Serena's cheeks flushed. I can't. It was yours. It won't sound right coming from me. Please. I want to know who I was with her. After a moment's hesitation, Serena began to sing in a soft, sweet voice. There once was a princess named Violet Rose, who was braver than anyone knows. She didn't need saving from towers so high. She just spread her wings and learned how to fly. The melody was simple, childlike, and absolutely perfect. Nathan found himself humming along, the tune feeling familiar even though he couldn't remember creating it. She loves it, Serena said. Whenever she's fussy and nothing else works, I sing your song, and she settles right down. Our song, Nathan corrected gently. You're part of it now, too. As if summoned by their conversation, Violet's cry echoed from the nursery down the hall. Both parents automatically started to rise, then stopped, looking at each other. Go, Serena said. She needs to bond with you. Nathan found Violet awake and alert in her crib, her dark eyes tracking his movement as he approached. When he lifted her, she settled against him immediately, her tiny fist curling around his finger. Hey, princess, he murmured, carrying her to the rocking chair by the window. Want to hear a story about a brave little girl who saves herself? As he began to sing the song Serena had taught him, adding his own verses about a princess with eyes like midnight and a smile like sunshine, Nathan felt something profound shift inside him. This was right this moment, this child, this life. It was right in a way that transcended memory. Serena appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with tears streaming down her face. What's wrong? Nathan asked, concerned. Nothing's wrong, she said, wiping her eyes. It's just hearing you sing to her again. For a minute, it felt like you never left. Nathan extended his free hand to her, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. He pulled her down onto the arm of the rocking chair, the three of them together in the afternoon sunlight. I may not remember our past, Nathan said quietly, but I know our future. It's right here, right now, in this room. We're going to be okay, Serena. All of us. For the first time since their reunion, Serena let herself really lean into him, her head resting on his shoulder as they watched their daughter drift back to sleep. I want to believe that, she whispered. Then believe it. Believe in us. Believe in this. He pressed a gentle kiss to the top of her head. Some things are too strong to be erased, even by amnesia. What we have, what we are, that's one of them. As the afternoon wore on, they stayed curled together in the nursery, sharing stories and building new memories on the foundation of their old love. And for the first time in 6 months, Nathan felt like he was exactly where he belonged. Chapter 6. Rebuilding Trust. The first real test came on Thursday night, when Violet spiked a fever. Nathan woke to urgent pacing in the hallway, Serena's voice tight with worry as she murmured soothing words to their crying daughter. He found them in the nursery, Serena in her pajamas, her hair wild with sleep and panic, clearly etched across her face. She's burning up, Serena said without preamble, her medical training evident in the way she checked Violet's temperature with clinical precision. Ibailingar. Bah. At her age, any fever over 104 is considered serious. Nathan felt ice form in his stomach. Emergency room? Definitely. Infants under 6 months can develop serious complications quickly. Their immune systems are still developing, and what seems like a simple fever can escalate rapidly. Hey, Nathan stepped closer, placing gentle hands on her shoulders. Stop. Just stop for a second. You don't understand. Babies can go from fine to critical so fast. Their immune systems are still developing, and if this is bacterial, if it's something serious, Serena. His voice was firm but calm. Look at me. She raised tear-filled eyes to his face, and he saw not just fear, but the bone-deep exhaustion of a woman who'd been carrying the weight of the world alone for too long. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. Whatever this costs, whatever she needs, we'll handle it together. You don't understand what medical bills can do. I already owe thousands from her birth, from the NICU stay when she had jaundice. I have money, Serena. Insurance. Whatever debts you've accumulated, we'll take care of them. Your family cut you off. I had my own money before I married you, investments, savings. And the store is doing well. He gently took Violet from her arms, feeling the heat radiating from the tiny body. Right now, the only thing that matters is making sure our daughter is okay. The drive to the hospital was tense, Serena navigating while Nathan focused on keeping Violet as comfortable as possible in the back seat. She fussed weakly, her usual lusty cries reduced to tired whimpers that were somehow more terrifying. "Talk to me," Nathan said, as they waited at a red light. "Tell me what I should be watching for." Serena's voice took on the professional tone he'd heard her use when discussing medical matters. Cool, precise, but with an underlying current of maternal terror. Lethargy, difficulty breathing, any change in her crying pattern. Babies her age can't regulate their temperature well, so we need to watch for signs of febrile seizures. Febrile seizures? Convulsions caused by high fever. They look terrifying but usually aren't dangerous. Still, at her age, she trailed off, and Nathan reached over to squeeze her hand. "She's going to be fine. You can't know that." "No, but I can believe it. And right now, that's what she needs from us. Faith, not fear." The emergency room was a study in controlled chaos. Fluorescent lights, crying children, worried parents clutching insurance cards and hoping for good news. Nathan watched Serena transform the moment they walked through the doors, her shoulders straightening as her nursing background kicked in. "I need to see a pediatrician immediately," she told the triage nurse, rattling off Violet's symptoms and vital signs with professional efficiency. 3-month-old female, fever of 102. 3, onset approximately 2 hours ago. No other symptoms present, but given her age, this needs immediate evaluation. The nurse, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, took one look at Violet's flushed face and immediately called them back to a treatment room. "You're good at this," Nathan observed as they waited for the doctor. "I should be. I've been dealing with it alone for months." There was no accusation in her voice, just weary acceptance. "But you're not dealing with it alone anymore." Serena looked at him with something that might have been hope. "It's hard to trust that every time I start to believe you're really here, part of me expects to wake up and find out this was all a dream. I'm real, Serena. This is real." Dr. Alvarez, the pediatrician on call, was a soft-spoken woman about their age, who immediately put them at ease. She examined Violet thoroughly while explaining each step, her hands gentle and sure. "Good news," she said finally. "This appears to be a simple viral infection, probably just a cold that's manifesting as fever, very common at her age, especially if she's been around other children recently." "She hasn't," Serena said quickly. "I'm very careful about exposure. Viruses are everywhere, Mama. Grocery stores, doctors' offices, well-meaning relatives who don't realize they're carrying something. You can't protect her from everything. And honestly, a little exposure helps build her immune system." Nathan watched relief wash over Serena's face like a physical wave. "So she's okay? She's fine. Keep her hydrated, infant acetaminophen for the fever, and call if it goes above 103 or lasts more than 3 days. She should be back to her normal fussy self by the weekend." As they prepared to leave, Nathan handled the insurance paperwork, while Serena redressed Violet. The baby was already looking more alert, the medicine having brought her temperature down. "The copay is $150, the receptionist said, and Nathan saw Serena's shoulders tense, even though she tried to hide it. He handed over his credit card without hesitation. "And we'd like to update our insurance information. My wife and daughter need to be added to my policy." "Nathan," Serena said quietly. "You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my family." The drive home was quieter, the crisis having passed but leaving them both emotionally drained. Violet had fallen asleep in her car seat, her breathing steady and peaceful. "Thank you," Serena said as they pulled into their driveway. "For what?" "For being there, for not panicking, for—" She struggled with the words. "For acting like a father." Nathan turned off the engine and looked at her. "I am a father. Memory or no memory, that little girl is mine. And so are you. It's not that simple, Nathan. Being a father isn't just about biology. It's about 3 A.M. Feedings and diaper blowouts and worrying yourself sick every time they spike a fever. It's about putting their needs before your own every single time, for the rest of your life. Then, it's a good thing I'm a fast learner. Back in the house, they worked together to settle Violet for the night. Nathan watched Serena move through the bedtime, routine changing the diaper, taking her temperature again, preparing a bottle just in case with the practiced efficiency of months of solo parenting. "You've gotten good at this," he said softly. "I had to. There was no choice." She settled into the rocking chair with Violet, even though the baby was already asleep. "Do you know what the hardest part was? Not the money, not the exhaustion, not even the loneliness. It was making every decision alone, wondering if I was doing the right thing, if you would approve, if I was somehow failing her because I didn't have her father there to help." Nathan knelt beside the rocking chair. "You didn't fail her. Look at her, Serena. She's perfect, healthy, happy, clearly loved beyond measure. You did that, all by yourself. I made so many mistakes. There were nights I cried as much as she did because I didn't know what she needed, times I wondered if she'd be better off with a different mother, someone who had their life together. Every parent feels that way sometimes. The fact that you worried about it proves you were doing it right." Serena looked down at their sleeping daughter. "I used to imagine what you'd say during the hard moments, when she wouldn't stop crying, when I was so tired I could barely stand, when I felt like I was drowning. I'd pretend you were there, telling me I was doing great, that you were proud of me. I am proud of you. Incredibly proud. But you weren't there. No, I wasn't. And I can't change that. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Serena finally looked at him, and he saw years of pain and exhaustion in her eyes. "How do I trust that? How do I let myself depend on you when I've spent so long learning to depend only on myself?" Nathan considered the question seriously. "I don't know. I think trust is rebuilt the same way it's built in the first place. One day at a time, one decision at a time, one crisis at a time. Tonight was a start. Tonight, you were perfect," she admitted. "Calm when I was panicking, strong when I was falling apart. It reminded me of—" She trailed off. "Of who I used to be, of who you fell in love with, the man who made you feel like you could handle anything as long as we were together." Nathan reached up and touched her face gently. "Maybe that man isn't gone. Maybe he's just been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Maybe." She leaned into his touch, just slightly. "I want to believe that." "Then believe it. Give us a chance, Serena. Give me a chance to be the husband and father you both deserve." For a long moment, they sat in the quiet nursery. The only sound Violet's peaceful breathing and the gentle creak of the rocking chair. Finally, Serena nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "One day at a time. One day at a time," Nathan agreed. As they put Violet in her crib and prepared for bed themselves, Nathan felt something settle into place, not a memory, but a purpose. This was his family, his life, his future, and he would spend every day proving himself worthy of the trust. Serena was slowly, carefully beginning to place in him again. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, to show her that he was here to stay. But tonight, for the first time since their reunion, they felt like a team. Chapter 7. Family Storms. Nathan should have known his family would find out eventually. He'd been naive to think he could rebuild his life in peace, that his parents would simply accept his absence from their carefully orchestrated social events without investigation. The Carvers had never been the type to let sleeping dogs lie, especially when those dogs threatened their meticulously maintained reputation. The confrontation came on a Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after Serena and Violet had come home. Nathan was in the kitchen making pancakes, something that felt natural despite his inability to remember learning the skill, while Serena fed Violet in the breakfast nook. The domestic scene was so perfect, so peacefully ordinary, that when the doorbell rang with sharp, imperious persistence, it felt like a violation. "I'll get it," Nathan said, wiping flour from his hands. "Expecting someone?" Serena asked, and he heard the note of tension that entered her voice. A week of happiness had made them both protective of their fragile new normal. No one important, he said, though something cold was already settling in his stomach. He opened the front door to find his parents standing on the porch like twin pillars of disapproval. Evelyn Carver was immaculate as always, her silver hair perfectly styled, her designer suit screaming understated wealth. Charles Carver stood beside her, his jaw set in the familiar line that had intimidated Nathan throughout his childhood. Mother, father. Nathan kept his voice carefully neutral, though every instinct was screaming at him to slam the door. Nathan, his mother said, her voice thick with relief and something that might have been guilt. Thank God you're all right. When Dr. Bennett called to say you'd missed your last 3 appointments, we were so worried. Dr. Bennett? Your neurologist. His father supplied impatiently. The one monitoring your recovery. You've been seeing him weekly since you were released from the rehabilitation facility. Nathan frowned. He had no memory of any Dr. Bennett or of missing appointments. In fact, he'd assumed his medical care had ended months ago when the headaches became manageable. May we come in? His mother asked, though she was already stepping forward. Nathan wanted to refuse, wanted to send them away before they could poison the sanctuary he'd built with Serena, but curiosity won out. He needed to understand exactly how deep their deception went. Of course, he said, stepping aside. His parents entered the foyer, their gazes immediately cataloging changes. Serena's jacket on the coat hook, Violet's carrier beside the door, the warm sounds of domestic life drifting from the kitchen. Nathan, his mother said carefully, Dr. Bennett was very concerned when you didn't show up for your appointment. He said your memory recovery has been progressing well, and that interrupting treatment now could be detrimental. Memory recovery? Nathan felt that familiar ache behind his eyes, the one that came when he tried to grasp something just beyond reach. The experimental therapy you've been receiving. Surely you remember the treatments, the progress you've been making. Nathan didn't remember any treatments, didn't remember Dr. Bennett, or weekly appointments or experimental anything. What he remembered was 6 months of isolation, of managing his symptoms alone, of feeling like he was missing crucial pieces of his life. Who's been paying for these treatments? He asked quietly. His parents exchanged a glance. We have, of course, his father said. Your insurance wouldn't cover experimental procedures. We've been taking care of everything while you recover. From the kitchen came the sound of Violet's delighted laughter, followed by Serena's voice singing something soft and sweet. His parents' heads turned toward the sound, like hunting dogs catching a scent. Nathan, his mother said, her voice dropping to the carefully modulated tone she used when delivering devastating news at charity galas. Who else is here? Before he could answer, Serena appeared in the doorway with Violet in her arms. She'd clearly been trying to give him privacy. But their daughter had other ideas, fussing until she could see what was happening. The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn Carver went pale, her perfectly composed facade cracking as she stared at the young woman and baby. Charles's face flushed red, his hands clenching at his sides. This is Serena, Nathan said, his voice steady despite the tension crackling through the air. My wife. And this is Violet, your granddaughter. That's impossible, his mother whispered. She's dead. They're both dead. Dead. Nathan felt the ground shift beneath his feet. What do you mean, dead? Serena stepped forward, her chin raised with the dignity Nathan was coming to recognize as her signature response to adversity. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Carver. I know this must be a shock. You're supposed to be dead, Charles said flatly. The car accident. You and the baby were in the car with Nathan. You died at the scene. The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. What car accident? The one that caused your amnesia, his mother said. Confusion, flickering across her face. The one where you lost your wife and child. The trauma of their deaths is what caused your memory loss. Dr. Bennett explained it all. Nathan felt the world tilt sideways. I was alone in the car. You told me I was alone. No, son. You were driving your family home from dinner. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit you head on. You were thrown clear, but Serena and the baby, his father's voice actually gentled. I'm sorry, Nathan. I know how much you loved them, but they didn't survive. That's not true, Serena said firmly. We weren't in any car with Nathan that night. I was home with Violet. Nathan was coming back from the store when the accident happened. The store? Evelyn's voice was sharp with suspicion. Carver's Corner Market, Nathan said. The store I reopened to honor my grandfather's memory. The store you told me was beneath the family name. Nathan watched his parents' faces change as understanding dawned. They hadn't just lied about Serena and Violet's survival. They'd created an entirely different narrative about the accident itself. You told me they were dead, he said slowly, pieces clicking into place. You made me believe I'd lost them in the accident to explain why I couldn't remember them. Nathan, his mother started, but he held up a hand. 6 months. For 6 months. You let me think I was alone in the world. You let me grieve for a family I couldn't remember while they were alive and struggling without me. We were protecting you, his father said defensively. The doctors said the trauma could set back your recovery indefinitely. That girl and her baby were complications you didn't need while your brain was healing. That girl is my wife. That baby is your granddaughter. A mistake, Evelyn said coldly, her composure returning as she faced what she clearly saw as a threat. A youthful error in judgment that we were trying to help you move past. There was no error, Nathan said, his voice deadly quiet. I chose them. I married Serena because I loved her. I wanted to build a life with her. You were 25 years old and thought you were in love with the first pretty girl who paid attention to you, his father snapped. We've spent months helping you rebuild your life properly. You have a position waiting at Carver Holdings, a future that doesn't involve teenage mothers and corner grocery stores. Serena is 23, not a teenager. She's a nursing student who was supporting herself through school when we met. And that corner grocery store represents everything good about our family history that you've spent your lives trying to erase. You're being emotional, his mother said dismissively. The accident affected your judgment along with your memory. Doctor, Bennett warned us this might happen as you recovered. That you might become confused about what's real and what's fantasy. The only fantasy here is the life you've been planning for me. Nathan moved to stand beside Serena, his hand settling protectively on Violet's back. This is my family. This is my real life. Nathan, please, his mother said, tears beginning to form in her carefully made-up eyes. Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're throwing away. Your trust fund, your place in the company, your future. All for what? A girl who trapped you with a pregnancy and a baby that may not even be yours. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Nathan felt Serena go rigid beside him, saw the pain that flashed across her face before she could hide it. Get out, he said quietly. Son, get out of my house. Now. Nathan, you're not thinking clearly, his father tried. The memory issues, the confusion, this isn't really you talking. You're right, Nathan said, his voice gaining strength. This isn't the son you raised talking. This is the man I chose to become when I met Serena. The man who values love over money, family over reputation, truth over convenience. And if you can't accept that, then you're not welcome here. His parents stood frozen for a moment, clearly expecting him to back down, as he apparently had so many times before. When he didn't, when he stood firm with his arm around his family, Evelyn's mask finally slipped completely. If you choose them over us, she said, her voice shaking with rage and barely contained grief, you're no son of mine. We'll cut you off completely. No money, no support, no family name. You'll have nothing. I'll have everything that matters, Nathan replied steadily. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, his father said, as they moved toward the door. No, Nathan said, looking down at Violet's perfect face. Then at Serena's tear-filled eyes. The biggest mistake of my life was trusting you with it. After his parents left, the house felt strangely quiet. Serena was pale, shaken by the confrontation and the casual cruelty of his family's accusations. I'm sorry, Nathan said softly. I'm sorry you had to hear that. They really convinced you we were dead? She asked. Completely. For 6 months, I thought I was mourning a family I couldn't remember. I thought that's why everything felt empty. And now, Nathan pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to the top of Violet's head. Now I know the truth. I know who I am and who I want to be, and it has nothing to do with their money or their approval. They'll make good on their threats, Serena warned. They'll cut you off, ruin your credit, make it as hard as possible for us to survive. Let them try, Nathan said fiercely. We survived 6 months apart. We can survive anything together. As he held his family close, Nathan felt something crystallize inside him, a resolve that was stronger than memory, deeper than the fear his parents had tried to instill. Whatever came next, whatever battles they'd have to fight, he was exactly where he belonged. Chapter 8. Love Rekindled. The confrontation with his parents left Nathan feeling raw and unmoored, but also strangely liberated. For the first time in 6 months, he felt like he was living his own life, rather than one someone else had designed for him. As evening fell and they settled into their nighttime routine with Violet, he found himself watching Serena with new appreciation. She moved through the house with unconscious grace, humming softly as she prepared Violet's bottle, her dark hair catching the warm kitchen light. The domestic scene was achingly beautiful, his wife caring for their child in the home they'd built together, and Nathan felt his heart expand with overwhelming emotion. "You're staring," Serena said without looking up from the formula she was mixing. "Can you blame me?" She glanced at him, and he saw the flush that crept up her neck. Even after a week of living together, there was still an electric awareness between them, a careful dance of attraction and uncertainty. "We should talk about what happened today," she said, settling into the rocking chair with Violet. "My parents, you mean? All of it. The lies they told, the life they tried to build for you, what it means for us going forward." Nathan pulled a kitchen chair closer to her, wanting to be near them both. "It means we're free. Really free, for the first time since the accident. Free and broke," Serena pointed out pragmatically. "If they cut off your trust fund, if they freeze your accounts, then we'll figure it out. The store is doing well, better than I expected. We have this house. It's in my name. They can't touch it. We have each other." Serena looked down at Violet, who was drinking her bottle with contented little sighs. "I'm scared, Nathan. Not of being poor, I've been poor. I'm scared of hoping too much, of believing this is real, only to have it taken away again. What would convince you it's real? I don't know. Time, maybe. Proof that you're choosing us not because you feel obligated, but because you want to." Nathan reached out and touched her face gently, marveling at the softness of her skin. "I can't prove that with words, but maybe I can show you." Something shifted in the air between them, a current of desire that had been carefully banked for the past week, suddenly flickering to life. Serena's breathing quickened, and Nathan saw the pulse point at her throat begin to flutter. "Nathan," she whispered, and his name sounded like a prayer on her lips. "I know we're taking things slow. I know you need time to trust me again, but Serena—" He leaned closer, close enough to see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. "I remember this not with my mind, but with my body. The way you smell, the way you fit against me, the way my heart races when you look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you want me as much as I want you." The admission hung between them, honest and raw. Violet had finished her bottle and was drowsing against Serena's chest, tiny and perfect and completely trusting. "Let me put her down," Serena said softly. Nathan waited in the living room while Serena settled their daughter for the night. When she returned, she'd let her hair down and changed into a soft sweater that clung to her curves. The sight of her made his mouth go dry. "Come here," he said, extending his hand. She took it, letting him pull her down onto the couch beside him. For a moment, they just looked at each other, the weight of everything they'd been through settling between them. "I missed you," Serena said quietly. "Even when I was angry, even when I thought you'd abandoned us, I missed you every single day. I missed you too, even though I didn't understand what I was missing. There was this emptiness, this sense that something crucial was gone from my life. And now—" Nathan reached up and touched her hair, marveling at the silky texture. "Now I feel complete for the first time since I woke up in that hospital bed." Serena leaned into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed, and he felt desire slam through him like a physical force. "I want to remember making love to you," he said roughly. "I want to remember what you like, what makes you gasp my name, what makes you fall apart in my arms." Serena's eyes opened, dark with want. "Then let me remind you." She leaned forward and kissed him, tentatively at first, Then with growing confidence as he responded eagerly. Her lips were soft and warm, and when she deepened the kiss, Nathan felt his control begin to fray. Upstairs, he managed against her lips. "Are you sure? We don't have to. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They made their way to the master bedroom, their bedroom with hands linked and hearts racing. Nathan had been sleeping in the guest room all week, giving Serena space to adjust. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a homecoming. Serena turned on the bedside lamp, casting the room in warm, golden light, then turned to face him, suddenly shy despite everything they'd shared. "It's been so long," she said, "and you're different now. I'm different too. What if we don't fit together the way we used to?" Nathan stepped closer, framing her face with his hands. "Then we'll learn each other all over again. We'll take our time. Figure out what works now. Today. With who we are in this moment." He kissed her again, slowly this time, savoring the taste of her, the way she melted against him. Her hands found the hem of his shirt, and he lifted his arms to let her pull it over his head. "Your scar," she whispered, her fingers tracing the raised line on his temple with infinite tenderness. "Does it bother you?" "No. It's part of my story, part of what brought me back to you." She pressed a soft kiss to the scar, and Nathan felt his knees go weak. Then her lips trailed down his neck, and he was lost to sensation, to the perfect rightness of her touch. They undressed each other slowly, reverently, each piece of clothing removed like a barrier falling away. When Serena stood before him in nothing but the soft light, Nathan felt his heart stop. She was beautiful curves and angles and skin like warm honey, but more than that, she was his. His wife. His love. His future. "You're perfect," he breathed. "I'm not. I have stretch marks from the pregnancy, and my body isn't the same." "You're perfect," he repeated firmly, his hands skimming over the faint silver lines on her belly. "You carried our child. There's nothing more beautiful than that." When they came together, it was with a passion that transcended memory. Nathan's body knew hers, recognized her in ways his mind couldn't fully grasp. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered endearment felt both new and achingly familiar. "Nathan," Serena gasped as he worshipped her with his hands and mouth, relearning every sensitive spot, every place that made her arch and cry out. "Please. What do you need?" "You. All of you. I need to feel alive again." When he finally joined with her, it was with a tenderness that brought tears to both their eyes. They moved together, slowly at first, reacquainting themselves with the rhythm they'd once known so well. But as passion overtook them, as months of longing and loss poured out in desperate kisses and whispered promises, their coupling became more urgent, more necessary. "I love you," Nathan said against her lips as they reached the peak together, the words torn from somewhere deep in his soul. "I love you, Serena. Memory or no memory, I love you." "I love you too," she sobbed, holding him tight as they fell apart and came back together in each other's arms. "I never stopped loving you, even when I hated you for leaving. I never stopped." Afterward, they lay tangled together in the bed they'd once shared, hearts slowly returning to normal rhythms. Nathan traced patterns on Serena's bare shoulder, marveling at the peace that had settled over him. "That was—" he began. "I know." Serena's voice was soft with wonder. "It was like coming home." "Do you remember our first time?" Nathan asked. "I wish I could remember it." Serena lifted her head to look at him, her hair falling like a curtain around them. "It was here, actually, in this bed. You were so nervous you were shaking, and I was trying to pretend I knew what I was doing when I really didn't." "Was it good?" "It was perfect. Not because we were experts, but because we loved each other so much. You kept stopping to make sure I was okay, to tell me how beautiful I was, how lucky you felt. I was lucky. I am lucky. We both are." Serena settled back against his chest, her fingers playing over his heart. "Nathan, I'm ready to trust this. To trust us. Whatever happens with your family, whatever financial problems we face, I want to build a life with you, the real you, not the memory of who you used to be." Nathan tightened his arms around her, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Then that's what we'll do. Day by day, moment by moment, We'll build something better than what we had before." As they drifted toward sleep, bodies intertwined and hearts finally at peace, Nathan felt the last piece of his fractured life click into place. He might not remember their past, but he was certain of their future. Whatever storms came, they would weather them together. From the nursery came the soft sound of violets stirring, and both parents smiled sleepily. "Your turn," Serena murmured. "Our turn," Nathan corrected, kissing her once more before reaching for his clothes. From now on, it's always our turn. Chapter 9. The Perfect Storm. 2 months after their passionate reunion, Nathan woke to an empty bed and the unmistakable sound of Serena vomiting in the bathroom. He found her kneeling on the tile floor, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, face pale and drawn. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her with a damp washcloth. "Bad Stomachbuch?" Serena accepted the cloth gratefully, pressing it to her forehead. "I don't think it's a bug." Something in her tone made Nathan go still. "What do you mean?" She looked up at him with eyes that held wonder and terror in equal measure. "I'm late, Nathan." 2 weeks late. The words hit him like a thunderbolt. Late, as in pregnant again. Nathan sat back on his heels, trying to process the information. Another baby, another child they'd created together in their newfound love. The thought filled him with a joy so intense it was almost painful. "How do you feel about it?" he asked, studying her carefully. "Terrified." Serena admitted. "We're just getting our lives back together. We're barely making ends meet as it is, and now, with your parents cutting us off completely." She trailed off, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her close as she cried. "Hey, we'll figure this out. We always do. I can't afford another baby, Nathan. The prenatal care, the delivery, the lost income when I can't work." Her voice was thick with panic. "What if something happens to this baby too? What if—" "Nothing's going to happen," Nathan said firmly. "We're going to take care of you and this baby and Violet, all of us, together. You don't understand the medical costs involved. When I had Violet, even with insurance, the bills were staggering. Now we don't even have proper coverage because I can't afford the premiums on what I make at the clinic." Nathan felt a surge of guilt and determination. His wife was panicking about medical bills while carrying their child. It was unacceptable. "I'm calling our insurance company today," he said. "Getting you the best coverage available. And I'll talk to Dr. Carter about payment plans, sliding scale fees, whatever it takes." "Dr. Carter? Your obstetrician, the one who delivered Violet?" Nathan frowned at her confused expression. "You haven't seen him since?" "I can't afford to see him," Serena said quietly. "I've been going to the free clinic for my checkups, hoping to save money for when the baby comes." The revelation hit Nathan like a physical blow. His wife, his pregnant wife, had been receiving substandard medical care because she couldn't afford anything better. While he'd been living in comfortable ignorance, she'd been scraping by with whatever free services she could find. "That ends today," he said fiercely. "Today, we make an appointment with Dr. Carter. Today, we get you proper prenatal care." Later that morning, while Serena napped and Violet played in her bouncy seat, Nathan made a series of phone calls that painted a grim picture of their financial situation. His parents had been thorough in their revenge. His trust fund was frozen pending a competency evaluation. His credit cards had been canceled, and his position at Carver Holdings had been permanently eliminated. But the store was still his, legally purchased before the accident with money his grandfather had left him. It was doing well enough to support them, but just barely. Adding another child to their expenses would stretch their resources to the breaking point. Nathan was still staring at the bills spread across the kitchen table when Serena emerged from their nap, looking marginally better but still pale. "How bad is it?" she asked, noting his expression. "We'll manage," he said, though he wasn't entirely sure how. That afternoon, as if the universe had decided to test their resolve, Violet developed another fever. This time, it spiked quickly to 104, sending them rushing back to the emergency room they'd visited just weeks before. "Febrile Zeitzure." "Doctor," Alvarez explained after Violet had been stabilized. "Common in infants, usually not dangerous, but we need to run some tests to rule out bacterial infection." The next 6 hours were a nightmare of medical jargon, worried, waiting, and mounting bills. Nathan watched Serena pace the pediatric ward, her hands pressed protectively to her still flat stomach, her face etched with the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying the weight of the world. "She's going to be fine," he assured her for the dozenth time. "You can't know that," Serena replied, her voice hollow. "Babies die from things like this, Nathan. They go from fine to critical in hours. And if something happens to her while I'm pregnant, if the stress affects the baby, nothing's going to happen to either of them. You keep saying that, but you can't guarantee it. You can't control everything, no matter how much you want to." The truth of her words hit him hard. He'd been so focused on being strong for her, on projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel, that he'd forgotten she needed him to be real, not perfect. "You're right," he said, sinking into the chair beside her. "I can't guarantee anything. I'm scared too, Serena. Scared for Violet. Scared about the new baby. Scared about how we're going to pay for all of this. At least you're honest about it. I want to be. I want to be the kind of husband who shares the worry instead of pretending it doesn't exist." "Doctor." Alvarez returned with good news. Violet's tests were clear, her fever had broken, and she could go home with a round of antibiotics. But the relief was tempered by the discharge papers Nathan signed, knowing each test and procedure was adding to their mounting debt. The drive home was quiet, Violet sleeping peacefully in her car seat, while her parents processed the events of the day. "I made an appointment with Dr. Carter," Nathan said as they pulled into their driveway. "Tomorrow at 2. Nathan, I told you we can't afford. We can't afford not to. You're carrying our child, Serena. That baby deserves the best possible care, and so do you. And how are we going to pay for it?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, an idea forming that he wasn't sure he was brave enough to voice. "I could sell the store." "What?" Serena turned to stare at him in shock. "The store. It's worth enough to cover medical expenses for both babies, to give us a cushion while we figure out what comes next. But the store is your dream, your connection to your grandfather, your independence from your family. My family is more important than any building," Nathan said firmly. "You and Violet and this baby, you're what matters. Everything else is just stuff." They sat in the car for a long moment, the weight of the decision settling between them. Finally, Serena spoke. "There might be another way." "What do you mean?" "I've been thinking about going back to school, finishing my nursing degree. If I could get my RN license, I could make enough to support us while you keep the store. Serena, you'd be 8 months pregnant by the time the next semester starts. And with 2 babies. I know it sounds impossible, but I'm smart, Nathan. I was top of my class before I had to drop out. I could do accelerated courses, online programs, whatever it takes." Nathan looked at his wife, brilliant, determined, fierce in her love for their family, and felt his heart swell with pride. "You could do anything," he said softly, "but you don't have to do it alone. We're a team now, remember? A team." She repeated. And for the first time that day, she smiled. That night, after Violet was settled and they'd made love with the desperate passion of 2 people clinging to each other in a storm, they lay in bed making plans. "We'll apply for financial aid for your school," Nathan said, his fingers tracing patterns on Serena's bare shoulder. "I'll hire help for the store so I can be home more with the babies. We'll make it work. And if we can't, then we'll figure out something else. But we won't give up, not on us, not on our family, not on the life we're building together. Promise." "I promise," Nathan said, sealing it with a kiss. "No matter what storms come, we'll weather them together." As Serena drifted off to sleep in his arms, Nathan stared at the ceiling and made silent vows to whatever gods might be listening. He would find a way to provide for his family. He would protect them from whatever his parents might try next. He would prove that love was stronger than money, that family was worth any sacrifice. From the nursery came Violet's contented sigh, and Nathan smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new obstacles to overcome. But tonight, he had everything that mattered in his arms, and that was enough to face whatever came next. Chapter 10. Forever Remembered. 6 months later, the first snow of December fell softly outside Carver's Corner Market as Nathan locked up for the evening. his breath forming clouds in the crisp air. The store had become more than just a business. It was the heart of their community, a place where neighbors gathered and families found what they needed. Tonight, it would also host the most important moment of his rebuilt life. Inside, Serena waited for him, radiant in a simple white dress that accommodated her 6-month pregnancy beautifully. Violet, now 9 months old and taking confident steps, toddled between the folding chairs that had been arranged in the small space between the registers and the produce section. Mrs. Lopez sat in the front row, tears already streaming down her face, while Dr. Alvarez and several of their friends from the neighborhood filled the remaining seats. "Sorry I'm late," Nathan said, kissing Serena's cheek as he straightened his tie. Last-minute customer couldn't decide between regular and chunky peanut butter. "Mrs. Lynn." Serena laughed, the sound warm and bright in the decorated space. They'd strung white lights around the store, placed simple bouquets of winter flowers near the makeshift altar, and somehow transformed the ordinary grocery store into something magical. "You know, we could have done this in a church," Nathan said, adjusting the boutonniere Serena had pinned to his lapel, or a proper venue, somewhere fancy. "This is perfect," Serena insisted, her hand resting on her rounded belly where their son they'd learned it was a boy, just last week was actively kicking. "This place is where we found each other again, where our real life started." Judge Thompson, a kind woman who'd agreed to perform the ceremony after hearing their story, smiled at them both. "Are we ready to begin?" Nathan looked around at the small gathering, their chosen family, the people who'd supported them through the hardest months of their lives. His parents weren't there, hadn't spoken to him since that confrontation 6 months ago. But their absence felt more like freedom than loss. "We're ready," he said, taking Serena's hands in his. The ceremony was simple but perfect. They'd written their own vows, words that reflected not just their love, but the journey they'd taken to find each other again. "Serena," Nathan began, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "6 months ago, I was a man without a memory, living a life that felt empty and incomplete. You walked into my store, carrying our daughter and stealing baby formula, and suddenly I remembered the most important thing, that love doesn't need memory to be real. It just needs 2 hearts willing to choose each other again and again." He paused, watching tears stream down her face, feeling his own eyes grow wet. "I may not remember falling in love with you the first time, but I'll never forget falling in love with you the second time. You've taught me that family isn't about blood or money or tradition. It's about showing up, holding on, and never giving up on each other. Today, I choose you. Tomorrow, I'll choose you again. For all the tomorrows we have left, I'll keep choosing you." Serena's voice was thick with emotion as she began her own vows. "Nathan, they told me you were dead, and for 6 months, I lived in a world without sunlight. When I saw you again, I was so afraid to hope, so terrified of losing you twice. But you've shown me that love isn't about perfect memories or flawless circumstances. It's about fighting for each other when everything falls apart." She took a shaky breath, her hands squeezing his tightly. "You chose me over money, over family approval, over the easy life you could have had. You chose our children, our chaotic little family, our uncertain future. Today, I choose you back. I choose your terrible singing voice and your burnt pancakes and your fierce protectiveness. I choose the man you were, the man you are, and the man you're still becoming. Forever and always, I choose us." When Judge Thompson pronounced them husband and wife again and told Nathan he could kiss his bride, the small gathering erupted in cheers, but Nathan barely heard them. All his attention was focused on Serena, on the way she looked at him like he'd hung the moon, on the way their son kicked enthusiastically between them, as if celebrating along with everyone else. "Hello, Mrs. Carver," he murmured against her lips. "Hello, Mr. Carver," she replied, and they both laughed at the formality of it. The reception was held right there in the store, with potluck dishes from their neighbors and music from a Bluetooth speaker perched on the deli counter. Nathan watched Violet charm everyone who would pay attention to her, her confidence growing daily as she mastered new words and skills. She was walking more steadily now, always heading straight for her parents with the determined waddle of a baby who knew exactly where she belonged. "Da," she called, raising her arms to be picked up. "There's my girl," Nathan said, swinging her up into his arms. She immediately grabbed for his tie, which had become her favorite toy at formal occasions. "She's going to be so excited about the new baby," Serena said, settling beside them on one of the folding chairs. "Think she'll be jealous? Maybe at first, but look at her. She's got your heart. She'll love her baby brother fiercely, probably try to protect him from everything." As if understanding the conversation, Violet leaned over and patted Serena's belly gently, the way they'd taught her. "Baby," she said clearly, one of her newer words. "That's right, sweetheart. Baby brother. Dr. Alvarez approached with 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "To the happy couple," she said with a warm smile, "and to proof that some things are stronger than amnesia." "To family," Nathan corrected, raising his glass. "However it's found. However it's formed." As the evening wound down and their friends began to drift home, Nathan and Serena found themselves alone in the store with Violet, who was fighting sleep in her father's arms. "I have something for you," Nathan said, shifting Violet to one arm and reaching into his jacket pocket. "Nathan, we agreed no gifts. We can't afford." "It's not new," he interrupted, pulling out a small velvet box. "I found it in our dresser drawer. I think it was your original engagement ring." Serena's breath caught as he opened the box to reveal a simple solitaire diamond. Small but perfect, the metal worn smooth with love. "You sold your grandfather's watch to buy this," she said softly. "I tried to talk you out of it. Said we didn't need something so expensive. But you insisted I deserved a proper proposal." "Smart man. That guy I used to be." Nathan took the ring from the box and slid it onto her finger, right beside the simple band they'd exchanged tonight. "Perfect fit. It's beautiful. I thought it was lost forever when your parents—" "It was hidden in our jewelry box, waiting for us to find our way back to each other." Serena held up her hand, admiring the way the diamond caught the store lights. "I never thought I'd wear this again. You'll never have to take it off again." Violet had finally succumbed to sleep, her head heavy on Nathan's shoulder. They gathered their things quietly, turning off lights and locking up the store that had become so much more than a business. At home, they tucked Violet into her crib and prepared for bed themselves, moving through the routine they'd perfected over the months they'd been rebuilding their life together. "Any regrets?" Nathan asked as they settled into bed. Serena curled against his side with their son active between them. "About what? All of it? The money we don't have, the family that disowned us, the uncertain future we're facing?" Serena was quiet for a moment, considering. "Do you know what I regret most?" "What?" "That I can't go back and tell the woman who was stealing formula 6 months ago that everything was going to be okay, that the man she thought was dead would come back to her, that they'd fall in love all over again, and that their family would be stronger for having survived, the worst thing they could imagine. She wouldn't have believed you. No, probably not. She was too scared, too broken. But I'd want her to know that sometimes the most beautiful stories start with the worst possible moments." Nathan tightened his arms around her, pressing a kiss to her hair. "What's our story going to be from here? I think it's going to be the story of a family who chose love over everything else, who built something beautiful from the wreckage of their old life, who proved that memory isn't what makes us who we are, our choices are." From the nursery came the soft sound of Violet talking to herself as she drifted off to sleep, probably practicing the new words she'd learned that day. In a few months, there would be another voice joining hers, another child to love and protect and guide through the world. "I love you, Serena Carver," Nathan said softly. "I love you too, Nathan Carver. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for giving me something worth choosing." As snow continued to fall outside their bedroom window, Nathan drifted toward sleep with his family safe in his arms. He might not remember their first love story, but he would never forget their second one, the one that proved love could survive anything. Even amnesia, even lies, even the cruelest tricks fate could play. Some things, he'd learned, were simply too strong to be forgotten. Love like theirs left marks on the soul that no amount of memory loss could erase. And in the quiet of their shared breath, the gentle kick of their unborn son, and the peaceful sighs from their daughter's room, Nathan knew they'd written an ending worthy of their beginning, forever remembered, forever choosing each other, forever home.